Welcome to One More Game presented by Hoosier Pickleball. I am your host, Matt Brandenberger. Alongside, on the other side of our friend Randy Coleman, is my wife, Abigail. Usually I give an adjective to describe Abby. We would say sweaty and smelly today.
Yes. So true.
We did get off the pickleball court.
I apologize.
This morning. So.
I didn't know where you were going to go with that adjective, but okay.
Oh, there's many.
I got nervous.
Yeah, those were kind ones. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we are excited to be back here. Last week we had our episode where we were co-hosts when we went on the 260 podcast, and we're really excited about Ace Pickleball coming to town and got a chance to do that interview. The week before that, we had Randy on. Am I getting that right? Or
yeah,
is
I
it
think so.
A couple weeks before? So Randy's still in town, and we were like, let's get him back on the show. And he had some great ideas to talk about. And we'll get into those a little bit later. But Randy, how has your time been in the Summit City? Are you enjoying the fort?
I love the fort. I say I'm a professional homeless person, so I have been here a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I got a good buddy in Doug.
Yeah.
And he always allows me to come in and do what I do. A couple of bachelors living it up in Fort Wayne. I always say still Summit City Brew Works located here in the middle of nowhere, Fort Wayne. Although you're about to be on the map with so many elements, but
exactly.
Yeah, east of the Mississippi, Summit City Brew Works. I think I said it last time. Best brewery.
That's your favorite, huh?
East of the Mississippi. You can get whatever you want. And then you'd have to go to Colorado.
Yeah,
for
sure.
Although, now that New Belgium is now in Asheville, so we have some great competition.
Yeah. And you love a good microbrewery.
I love good craft breweries. I love all the microbreweries that are coming up. It's just,
they're everywhere. I mean, you talk about pickleball exploding. The microbrewery, I feel like there's one that, if you're ever down in Greenwood, Indiana, the Oak and Barrel is one of my favorite. My brother-in-law lives right near there, and we go anytime we're down there. And about 10 years ago, he was like, man, you guys just don't have much of any of that in Fort Wayne. We should look at opening something up. Well, I think about 50 people had that same idea, and there's a bunch of them around here now.
It is a thing, and it goes well with pickleball too. I just got a new companion sticker for
I saw
for
that.
the back of my New Belgium. It says pickleball and beer. That's why I'm here.
So. I saw that. That was good.
I like that. That's really good.
Yeah.
So what else have you been doing? We've played a few times.
Yeah, it's great to get on the court with everybody and see the progress. And I'm usually here once a year, and see how people are progressing in their skill, and all the new courts that are coming up. You have even some great dedicated courts now. Yeah, you have quite a few options, and you're seeing that explosion, the growth of pickleball, and people are converting the tennis facilities. They're leaving what I've seen here in several of the parks. They'll leave one tennis court, and then they'll take the other tennis court and or other two tennis courts and convert them to pickleball. So they're kind of marrying both of those things together.
So you get to see kind of a snapshot view once a year or so, coming back and see. And that's a good
rising.
Point.
Yeah,
it is.
It's rising. And then you see the two people that'll come out and play tennis.
Yeah.
For some reason.
You've seen them? I haven't seen them.
No,
it's been a while.
Yeah, it's usually you'll see two people playing tennis and then about 20 people playing, pickleball. Right. And I poke fun, but at tennis, but the learning curve is so much easier, in pickleball, and tennis is still a wonderful sport. But to go out and just kind of keep the ball going and have fun and the social aspect of it.
It's more compact too. You're not chasing the ball all over the place.
Yeah, I've heard you
see.
Yeah, I've heard you could say about pickleball, it's easy to learn, hard to master. So
absolutely
very accessible to learn.
Right.
And then
getting outside and progressing that skill set is something that you absolutely have to spend time on. And apparently you're going to test that coming up in Beer City.
That's right.
We'll see how that goes.
She's going to be playing 4-5. I want to see it. I like it. You want to push yourself.
Well,
I like it.
I mean, we talked about this. It's a round robin. I'm not qualifying for anything. I'm going to play as high as I can.
There you go. You're going to get guaranteed number of matches.
Right.
So why not?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's right.
And then you'll get to see where you are and the weaknesses, strengths, and where to go.
It will reveal a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm ready for that. So.
And I guess technically when this episode drops, we will have already finished at Beer City. So in our episode after that, we will give the update on how that went. Hopefully.
How Abby got murdered.
Oh, come on.
So,
okay.
Confidence.
So your next episode, you guys could just do together, and you can say, talk about if you're thinking of entering a tournament, what are the pros and cons of playing up or staying within your skill set?
Yeah.
That's always a hard decision. It is. I think a lot of depends on the format and how big of a tournament is, all that. So
and 4-5 is that true mark where things just get the skill, the more consistent shots that you're going to see from your opponents, the more powerful that your opponents are. So it's a level that really kind of will open your eyes up, and then moving for next year when I'm here and you're playing 5-0 tournaments. So.
There you go.
Thank you for that confidence.
Yeah. No, it's great to see the growth, coming into, Fort Wayne. There's way more courts here than there were the last time. You have that new community center that we went and played at.
Yep.
Really a nice color scheme, something we're going to get into, I think, today.
Yep.
And it was a conversion from, it was one tennis court there? Was that that was a dedicated build?
That's brand new.
That was a dedicated build. The one similar to that. So for those of you that live in this area, he's talking in New Haven. There's the New Haven Community Center, and then down the road is Jury Park. Now, Jury, I believe, was a conversion from a tennis court. But the one thing interesting about that, I don't see any cracks at Jury like a lot of the Fort Wayne parks that converted from tennis still have some existing cracks. So I don't know if that's just a testament to the age of the courts or why that might be, but
well, yeah, when they originally built those courts into tennis, the substructure that they used, most likely everything that I've seen here is an asphalt base. It's going to be a crushed rock, underneath that, and earth is going to move, and there is only one way to prevent cracks when you're building pickleball courts, and that is with post-tension concrete. So your tennis courts, they're usually 4 inches, and everybody has their own formula when they're building tennis courts on how they're going to build those. And when you use asphalt, the earth is going to move, and you are going to have cracks. So even when you convert those to pickleball, once the cracks are there, you're not getting rid. I don't care what you do to put over the top of that, the cracks will always
resurface.
Come. Yep. So they'll show everything what was there before, and the only way to get rid of it is to tear it all up and start all over. But it
sounds expensive,
right? And that's not going to be in the parks department.
No, but it looks
budget.
but it looks great. They, created a decent space with what they're going through, and it's great to see. So the conversions, even when you're gonna build, you're kind of limited on what your choices are on how you're going to plan. So right out of the gate, you just want to pick the best color contrast. Keep it simple for your community. Kind of emulate and mimic what tennis has done with the color scheme, and give people a way to play pickleball. And you have all these permanent nets, which are awesome. So.
I mean, this is really a great segue into our topic today, is the fact that you are a court design and consultant. Or what's your title? What do you call yourself?
I do consult, a fair amount. It's part of what my passion is kind of has grown into. I've worked with USA Pickleball for a number of years now. I was, an ambassador back in 2018. Just as a USA Pickleball ambassador, as I travel around the country. I didn't actually have one area. Normally, a USA ambassador is in a particular region. Back then, they kind of grandfathered me in because I live on the road everywhere, so I don't actually have, a home base. They don't have that anymore, but I'm, still an ambassador. And I started actively working with some of the people within USA Pickleball, Mark Pfeiffer, who is, he's the head of the entire referee program.
Yep.
So, him and I have had lots of conversations, and then it just be kind of, as I travel and I see all this growth, which is absolutely fantastic. Getting back to what I truly am passionate about is growing pickleball, and playing with locals, and watching it grow and promoting it. And then I just started noticing what was working really nice in a particular area, whether it's Naples or whether it's Indian Wells. And, yes, the money comparison is, way different there, than when you're building, courts and resurfacing in Fort Wayne, Indiana. But I would see consistent things that were successful, or better appealing, as I travel all over. And then I would see things that were just odd color choices or odd dimensions, and the choice that was actually made for, converting, pickleball, and, being a little bit of a perfectionist, I just kind of started getting more interested in giving information that I was learning to those people that were building. So, now it's turned into, I've been involved with Boxcar Productions now for over 2.5 years. So I see a lot of elements constructing courts at a high professional level.
Sure.
And what visibly looks better on camera, or, what some of the challenges are with certain choices in colors and things like that. So my involvement is kind of crossed over into wanting to get information out to people that might be good, what I call considerations, when you're converting or when you're building. And it's grown into consulting privately, and then just sharing, like I am now. What would not that my input is the end all be all, but it is a great resource of everything that I've learned, whether it's USA Pickleball or doing professional live streams, or my background in construction, or even back when I was making a living, and home construction and painting. So I still have a knowledge base of color mixing and contrast and what goes into certain things.
Right.
So.
I would even argue, I wonder, have you ever thought about this? Is there anybody in the whole world that plays at more courts throughout the course of the year than you do? I mean, seriously, name me one person who travels as much as you do around and gets to see a variety of different courts and structures, what works, what doesn't. I mean, you really are equipped. You have a unique skill set that allows you to be able to consult at a high level.
Well, when you are homeless, and then people force you out of there. No, I'm kidding. I'm usually, and then again, so to answer your question, maybe you could do. I get to see a lot. I will tell you that. So I'm usually in a different place every week. In the United States, and then usually once a year I'm traveling internationally, and seeing what's going on, for international growth as well.
How many days in a row is typical that you play? Do you play several days in a row? I mean, is there ever a time that you don't play for 5 straight days?
Oh yes, yeah. No, I mean, it's usually every couple of days you're still getting on the court, somewhere, and a lot of that time is spent traveling, because I came back from Thailand. I instantly got in the truck. I pulled the production trailer for Boxcar, for our company too, and instantly went straight to California, and then from California I hit Colorado. And then now here I am in Fort Wayne,
and then headed out to Pittsburgh after Grand Rapids. So.
Yeah, we shoot Grand Rapids next week, and then Pittsburgh, and then down to Atlanta, and then back to California twice at the end of the year. So I'm hitting places, in between as I travel. So and then there's times where I'm pulling into a town, and I have time. Like I was here, and I'll look up a place to go eat, or maybe a nice microbrewery.
Sure.
And then I am looking up, where people are playing pickleball. So even as I was coming here, I had time, and I, stopped in a place I've never been, and
really.
And nobody knows who I am, but what skill are you, and then you just like, well, let's just go out and have fun, and you're just playing and seeing what is going on with the growth of the conversion of pickleball courts, in communities. So yes, I have seen a fair amount. So I'm on the road every week.
So all that to say, you are well equipped to give your opinion.
Kids are grown. 30 and 24. 25 now, and
you just had a birthday.
Yes,
happy birthday!
You didn't even tell us.
You gave lessons on your birthday.
Oh, you did.
I did.
Nice.
I did. You got some great guys here. Wanting to learn. I do. What's called 3 and 4 as I travel. It's I think giving back the most value to the people in the community. It's best to do that in live. Court play scenarios where I can talk about positioning and what is successful, why this worked and why this didn't work on each side actively, during points. So
and you're videoing them at the same time so they can go back and look at that?
I will do that. I did that was it yesterday or day before with
whatever
the guys.
day was your birthday.
Where are we now? 2 days ago.
2 days ago.
Yeah.
So July 13th.
There you go.
And so that I can just give that raw footage for them to actually look at what I'm talking about.
Sure.
And video is a great way to do that. But actively having people play and then talking through those points and making instant corrections for better placement on the court or better shot making decisions. So I can't fix your mechanics of what you're doing in your shot in a very short amount of time. I mean, you could work on one skill set, for 4 to 6 weeks before you could actually, make that true muscle memory conversion. But to actively, move to this particular place as you're moving forward, from the baseline to the kitchen, or as you're playing, are you crowding the middle too much? I always say it's like, the court is the center of the net is like the center of your shower drain, or at one end of your bathtub, and all the water tends to gravitate to that one area. In the middle of the pickleball court, which you don't actually realize, is everybody tends to gravitate and just merge right to the middle. So you'll see 4 players playing very close together in proximity, leaving a lot of areas in the angles where it's going to be a detriment, or it's going to create a weakness just because of where you are on the court. So anyway, so it's fun to see.
Awesome.
And you guys are doing great. You have so many courts and so many new things coming. So.
Well, let's do this. Let's take a quick break, and then we will come back and let's get into talking about some of the things that you really would want to see for people who are thinking about building courts, either in their neighborhood, maybe privately, maybe an entrepreneur who's looking to build publicly as well. So we'll get into all of that.
And what I'll segue into that is what I call them is there's 4 different priorities or considerations when you're thinking about doing courts. And just to give a little insight as to what's coming is it's proper spacing, proper lighting, proper fencing, and then proper color choice. I always have to say proper because there's just certain things that work better than others. So
awesome.
We'll talk about that.
We can just,
all right.
one go through those 4. I
love
like that.
All right. We will be right back to talk through those. See you then.
Parents, your teen driver or soon-to-be driver looks to you for guidance on safe driving techniques.
Drive Alive is an organization dedicated to young driver safety. Visit our website at drivealiveindiana.org to view videos designed to facilitate conversations between parents and their teen drivers.
Topics include getting to know your vehicle, understanding car insurance, simple car maintenance, and what to do if you just had an accident.
Visit drivealiveindiana.org to learn more. All right, welcome back to One More Game presented by Hoosier Pickleball. We're here with the man, Randy Coleman. I think we established the man who plays at the most pickleball courts around the world in a given year. I challenge you, if you know of somebody who plays more, you need to like keep a diary or something.
Yeah, I know.
Cool.
Yeah, I have thought about it. There is one that sits underneath my center console.
Does it?
It doesn't have anything in it, but
yeah, that'd be kind of cool.
But you can read about it in my book. But let's get into it.
Love it.
It's coming out next summer.
Next summer? Next month, I thought
it's called Strategically Single. Again.
Part
no.
2.
Yeah.
Part 5.
I've been strategically single since 2005. Let's get that very clear.
Way to go.
Regardless of any decisions that have been made since 2005, I've stayed on course.
Way to go. So before the break, you teased the 4 things that we talk about, or that you talk about when we're talking about designing courts. And the first one was spacing. You want to get into that a little bit? What do you mean by spacing?
And I will prioritize them a little bit right out of the gate. So
Okay.
Your very first consideration is what space do you have, and what do you need to make your private court or each court in your community. So that your spacing between each court, that would be number 1 priority, is what I would say.
Or even how much space you have if it's a single court,
overall.
right? Because you got 44 by 20 is the size of a court, but you need more space than that.
Absolutely, and there's reasons why certain things work better than others. The second priority, I would still say, are going to be your color choice, and then more flexibility and freedom of expression if you're doing a private court. And then third priority, I would say, is consider your fencing, your containment system, what it is that you're going to do. And I always say less is more when you're creating courts. And what I mean by that is you actually want to, if you had a limited space, so your footprint is X and Y, then how many courts are you thinking of squeezing or placing into this particular area? And when I say less is more, less courts will always, in a set footprint that's already pre-existing, less courts is going to give a better experience overall. However, communities get in and they're instantly they say, how many courts can we fit into here? And then they have decision makers that'll say we need more than 6 courts. Because typically what happens is you have 2 tennis courts and 6 pickleball converted courts. Works magnificently. Depending on the space, which tennis is pretty set nationwide and the dimensions of what that is. When you start squeezing in 4 on each side, things get very tight, and then you can't put containment systems, you can't put court dividers, and there's reasons why that is kind of an essential thing in my opinion. But if your community doesn't want to do it, at least make it as safe as possible. And then third priority would be the containment system for each court. Are you going to try to create a dedicated court experience, or is this going to be an open concept? So fencing would be the third priority. And then if you're going to do an indoor facility, I would say those priorities get switched around, but lighting is absolutely a priority. And it would, right out of the gate, it's going to go, in my opinion, spacing per court, and then lighting is your very next consideration. What you're going to actually, where you're going to place those lights. There's a strategic placement of those lights on the sidelines of the court, and are you doing direct lighting or are you doing indirect lighting? Okay. So a lot of pre-existing, and I keep referring back to tennis, and I say that because they've had over 100 years, well over 100 years, to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And if you go into a country club setting, most every single country club that I've seen where there's tennis, they have what's called indirect lighting or uplighting, and it's along the sides, just like Wildwood.
Yeah.
So in between the spacing of those tennis courts, you're going to see lighting, and it's going to reflect up. You're always going to have that white ceiling for the light to reflect off of, and we'll get into why white is chosen for that as well. So if you're going to have indoor spacing or indoor court design, lighting is something that is absolutely overlooked everywhere I go. And most every place that I've walked into, except one place in Asheville, North Carolina, believe it or not, you walk in and you instantly are like, well, it's kind of dark in here. Instead of like, oh, wow, look how nice and bright things are in here.
Right.
So we can get into each of those and the spacing.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Absolutely.
So you are behind the camera a lot. So are there going to be different choices based on whether this courts are going to be like televised on ESPN, or are these going to be standards that also work well behind a camera? Does that make sense?
When people are building?
Well, or converting, or, the color choices and stuff. Like, are you looking at it from also like behind the camera?
That's
like a production.
That's
standpoint.
going to be
standpoint.
that would actually be a progression of what you're going to highlight in your community or in your facility that you are now investing millions of dollars in. Are you going to highlight, something on television, and are you going to put it, where cameras are actually going to be looking at it? And actually, those choices, even like what we see, we had a 2-year contract with the APP and USA Pickleball. So we shot, Indian Wells. Indian Wells is the premier of it's the peak that everybody would hope to attain. If you've ever experienced Indian Wells, which it's not there anymore.
Sad.
So sadly, yeah, this venue, progression happens, but now that relationship is no longer. But they were they being Indian Wells, that conversion of dedicated pickleball courts, dedicated contained 4 foot, higher than 4 foot actually, fencing on each court. The color choices that they made, they just mimicked what they they already had. It looked beautiful on camera. There was plenty of spacing, plenty of viewing. The concept was just absolutely magnificent, and I would applaud anybody that would be able to replicate that. But it's
why don't they? Is
it money?
Budget. Money. Yeah,
budget.
That's what it comes down to. Yeah.
And we don't actually choose colors. So the PPA has kind of a color scheme that they go with. They've created a model. They've kind of strayed off and done some unique things. We even saw that black and red court, I think they did, at one particular venue. But, those are other determining factors that are just set within each professional organization as to what colors, they actually choose. I was actually allowed, so we've shot every MLP, Major League Pickleball event, and I was actually allowed to give opinion on color choice for that center court that you saw, highlighted with the kind of expressive artwork wall.
Yeah.
From that kitchen angle, but the court itself, the blue and the gray perimeter. Those choices worked for a particular reason, and they look very good on camera.
Yeah.
It's
nice when you can hit both of those, right?
So, yeah. And it is money that usually determines that, and the number of courts.
Yeah. So we've kind of gone through a lot of those. You've talked about them, but let's kind of succinctly go through each and talk just a little bit about them. So start first with the spacing.
Okay.
A court, as we know, is 44 by 20.
Right.
How much space, ideally, do you have both on the ends and the sides?
What USA Pickleball has always had in their books is what I still call the old way of thinking, and it was an 8-foot baseline, meaning your court is 44 feet in length from outside line to outside line, and then from that outside line to the fencing, they always recommended 8 feet.
Okay.
We have learned that in the professional side of movement, spacing needed. This was a sport that was demographically an older generation. The movements were limited. They didn't really need. I'm not poking fun at mobility is a thing. So you didn't really need more than 8 foot behind the baseline.
Right.
You weren't running down balls. You weren't Riley Newman, running 20 feet off the court and being able to, retrieve that ball, which creates a whole level of excitement.
Sure. As
does Major League Pickleball with being able to get balls back. So what used to be the old 8 feet on each end, right? So you had these dimensions and people were going out and building those models based on the information that was professionally given to them at the time. So they still have that in there, that 8 foot is a minimum of what they would recommend, but 10 feet now is the statistical specification as to what people should be building.
Interesting.
Except in a conversion. So if you convert a tennis court, those tennis courts have predetermined preset footprints, and there's only so much you can do. So it actually still goes back to almost that 8 foot baseline when you're doing a conversion. You don't have a choice.
For reference, the tennis courts that we converted in our neighborhood, where it was 2 tennis courts side by side, and I think we had exactly 60 feet from fence to net on each side.
Yeah,
so
it's 120 is the full dimension of fence to fence on a tennis court. So 120 feet.
Yeah, so that worked out perfect, to have that 8 feet, not for the 10 feet that's not recommended.
And it's actually not quite 8 feet.
Yeah.
Even though it works out on paper 8 feet, your paddle is still going to hit. So you are limited, and that's okay.
Yeah.
When you're doing those conversions, it's more when I get involved, and I would love to see a community that has, 2 tennis courts and they want to put in as many pickleball courts as possible. I still would just say, have that local ambassador for pickleball, have that community leader to really, emphasize, guys, we need to build pickleball courts for our community and this is what we want to achieve in phase 2.
Yep.
In phase 1, let's make 6 wonderful courts for our community. But then, you're in this conundrum where, it's like you build, you don't have any courts, and then you build 6 great courts and nobody can ever play because they're full all the time.
Right.
So I understand that there's challenges. I will just tell you that what works better.
Yeah.
And I prefer to get actively involved. And if you're going to build something for your community, do whatever you can to make that experience for that pickleball play as best as possible, and then phase it out in your city budget. Get money allocated, raise money. You can complain all you want, about why don't we have this? Well, then actively get involved, actively raise money. But so 8 feet, getting on point here, was the old 10 feet on each end. Now is what should be a standard. If you want, especially if you're going to build new construction. So new construction, 10 feet. Now these are all outdoor, right?
Sure.
So this is if you're going to build dedicated courts, you're not limited on the spacing on your end or your width. So you're going to build your foundation footprint based on specifications, right? Sure. So specifications, which now that's going to turn into 64, right? Now, what is the proper width per court? From sideline to each separation of fencing, or if you're going to not do fencing, what would be, and we've seen so many things where, people put in brand new courts and there's not even 4 feet between sideline to sideline.
Right.
Of course, your dedicated fence that they put in is a foot outside of that, right?
Right.
So, I mean, it's you have, in my opinion, in your community, you have just incurred unnecessary liability.
Sure.
For an incident to happen that is going to actually cost your city. Rather
people
than
running into each other or running into the fence.
Pickleball is a very lateral moving sport. It the flow does go back and forth, but most of the pickleball takes place transition area to the kitchen, and then the movement is laterally along that kitchen line. People of certain demographics, generations, if you're moving left to right and you get momentum going, everything just gets worse. As now that I'm 59, let's not talk about that again.
Oh man, next year's going to be real rough.
Yeah,
you might be here for it.
Great. Now I need another beer. Did not remember that. But being able to stop, right? So,
Right.
You got, and what is right next to you, either another person, a fence, a hazard,
Sure.
that is, you've created unnecessarily. So what is the proper spacing? What I have seen consistently that works successfully is 7 feet from the sideline to that perimeter fence. So if you want to create a budget, of course, every foot that you add is going to create 2 foot per court times how many courts. And, would 8 feet be great? Still we're talking about budget, right? Yeah. But 7 feet works great. And what that means is you're going to have 6 foot of clearing around the fence. Mm-hmm. And you're going to provide 7 feet of lateral movement for at most people's mobility and agility to be able to slow their movement down themselves without an obstacle slowing it down for them.
That's a good way to say it.
And then what would be the premier? I would say per court would be 8 feet. So 8 feet from sideline to fence on each side, right? So now we've just created a 36 foot by 64 foot footprint. So it would be very simple to do the math, and then knowing that 64 by 34 will work. Take your space, whatever you're looking to do, if it's indoor, and work on that model. And there's other things like beams indoors and things like that. But building an outdoor space, that is what I would say it would be your goal footprint to be. So,
all right, write it down, Abs. Our next house, we're gonna
64 feet long, 34 foot width, works wonderfully, and this also allows not only whether you put fencing, separation, court dividers or not. If you think about that, you would have 14 feet between courts. Right. If you cannot get your city to put in some kind of containment system. And then why am I such an advocate of containment systems, which is AKA fencing?
Sure.
Is because it allows for the enjoyment of the play without interference. Right. And then what I would highlight in your community is the safety factor of that. Mm-hmm. Guys, we need to create a safe environment for our community. There's no reason why we can't budget, fencing between those courts. But either way it works, whether you can get them, to approve or not. But that's putting fencing. I still strongly advise. If I get involved in a project,
And how high do you?
Go ahead, Abby.
Well, just how high do you want that fencing to be? What's ideal?
Well, that's a whole nother thing about pickleball. So what you see in tennis, right? We have pre-existing perimeter fencing. And those fences are normally 10 feet. I've seen some 12.
Sure.
But most of the time, the perimeter fence is 10 feet. If it's pre-existing, you can't do anything about that. Meaning, we don't need 10-foot fences in pickleball. And then people will say, well, we need windscreens. And I just saw one facility. It was in Indiana. We won't say, but they had a 10-foot fence all the way around, Cyclone traditional tennis fencing. And then they decided that, well, they tried the windscreen approach, but they keep tearing. So somebody came up with the idea, we're going to put these 1-inch slats in between and weave them in and out, vertically up and down. Yeah. Well, you hold a tournament, you can't even see through the things. And how much windbreak are you actually providing? You'd have to actually get professional measurements. But what I always say in pickleball, if the wind is 15 miles an hour, I don't care if you have a wind containment system, wind screens, trees, a wall, the pickleball is going to be rough. It is
15's kind of the
15 miles an hour. You're like, yeah, we can go out and have fun, but tomorrow looks fantastic. And it's and the point of this is people don't need the high fences. If you're going to do new construction, you don't need high fences for wind containment because it's going to be pretty rough no matter what. But if you did, you would do that on the prevailing wind side. So do your research, like, hey, we tend to get more winds out of the north, so let's put up, a 10-foot fence on this side. Let's do a nice,
that's interesting.
Not a see-through, kind of mesh windscreen, but spend the money. But it costs money to it's something that you're going to have to maintain. But the reason that I say, so 4-foot fencing is your mark, is what I would say. If you're going to divide courts, 4-foot fence in between the courts, all
in
the
between
way,
every court,
in between every single court.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say
Ideally,
create a pleasurable experience on each court. For your community or for your indoor facility.
Yeah.
You want to minimize that hindrance, or that interference of balls on the court. And again, this is a much safer environment than ball on. I mean,
right.
continuously. And you're in the middle of a great point and you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So and again, we're not talking about limiting growth of pickleball. We're talking about what would be the best decision. We want to build courts in our community. What are some of the best things to consider? Yeah. And then what I try to advise people on, and one of the latest projects that just opened, Good Bounce in Louisville, Kentucky, he used a lot of what I recommended for color choices. He thought about doing a red, but some of the colors work better than others, or he wanted a different color choice. But the concept is now open and active, and it looks real nice. I would still like to see more light out there on that court, but again, sometimes money gets in the way.
Yeah.
Of these decisions. But what I tell people about when you're building a pickleball experience and determining fencing and how high those fences are going to be done, what I tend to learn is people don't know what they don't know. And what I mean by that is if you haven't given people certain considerations, they didn't even know to consider that to begin with. So they're like, oh, well, the tennis place over here, they've got well, we need 10-foot fences. Well, why do you not need 10-foot fences? And I would say pickleball is a very social, inclusive sport. Tennis, when you go out and you I grew up playing tennis, and when you're on the court, you're there with your partner hitting, or you're there as a doubles team, and you're just in your space. The tennis ball bounces extremely high. You need a higher fence to contain that ball and that ball bounce. And it's not, you don't find people going up and resting their arms on a tennis fence or standing outside the fence and just watching people play tennis.
Right.
Pickleball is the opposite of that. It is an extremely social sport. There's usually more people involved, just in that session of pickleball. And what is actually natural is if you had 4-foot fencing all the way around your court, people have a tendency in pickleball to come up, they rest their arms just right on top of the fencing. And what is that normal height? That normal height is about 4 foot. It's it's kind of like a bar, which I may or may not have been in my lifetime. And when you sit at the bar and somebody has designed, we just came from an Irish pub a minute ago, by the way, and they do, so they have that nice little concave armrest at the bar. Right. Pickleball is similar, actually, what I would say. So if you dedicate your fencing, and then you actually put fencing caps, what they're called. So they're safety caps. You've seen them yellow, green, and black is what normally. Right. And you just naturally, somebody's playing, your friend's playing, you walk up to the fence and you put your arms and you're just looking over watching your friends. This is what pickleball creates. Yeah. And if you design your experience, whether it's outdoors or indoors, based on that. You have now created an inclusive environment and not a separated, division of what I call like prison walls. Where
I've often thought, is that fence a little too high? Because all you really need to do is have it a foot or two. But that's a great point. And even Chicken and Pickle, I think they have it. Some of them like a little bar. Yeah, there's a rail and like where you can have food or drink or
he's doing that at Good Bounce down in Louisville.
Yeah,
you can actually create a rail at and Chicken and Pickle does that on the ends where you can just sit and you can order your food, you can have a drink, and you can watch your friends play.
Yeah.
What I will say about fencing real quick and the separation of that is being aware of what you create on the ends. So, and what I mean by what blocks or what contrasting walls are you putting at the end so that as you're playing you can have a little bit better visibility of separation instead of just seeing
like a see-through.
I've seen pickleball designs where they do end-to-end, like this is brand new construction. And they just built 24 brand new courts. And there is a section there where you got a court and then end to end. If you look down the row, it's like a court and then another court and then another court. And they're 4-foot fences. That's great. But you can't separate the ball, when you're playing.
Yeah.
It's hard to pick it up. And again, I still say people don't know what they don't know. And if you haven't brought up a particular consideration, and when you say, I promise you that unless you put some kind of blue or dark contrasting wall at each end, even if it is only 4 feet, if you're going to do courts end to end, what I would actually say is your wall needs to be 6 feet.
Interesting.
So if I'm going to have a court and then just immediately adjacent to that is another court on the other side, I would instantly advise you to make a 6-foot fence, cyclone fence, and put up a dark green or a black court separator so that I'm not just looking at the next court as I'm trying to return the ball. I can't even pick it up.
So let's get into color then. I think we've pretty much touched on everything then, except for color. We talked about lighting as well. Briefly.
Well, there's way more things to talk about lighting, but let's talk about the color real quick.
Let's go to color.
So why do certain colors work? Well, I'm going to refer to tennis just because they've had a long time to figure this out. Why do they use blue, so much? I mean, there's a reason why blue is used, mostly in any professional or actually in every community. What are you going to see? You're going to see blue and red, blue and green, right? So when tennis was started, way back when it was started, green was actually chosen for the court color and actually the court because they wanted it to mimic grass. That was actually their reason. And back then, the ball was actually white. So accidentally, it worked well with the green choice, and then historically it changed to the yellow ball. And what is actually created by using a blue court, if you look at the color wheel, so why are we doing that? Why are we choosing certain colors? Well, what would be a preference in that transition area of a pickleball court, just like tennis, which is blue, right? I call it U.S. Open blue, but it's mainly just a deep or a kind of a dark blue.
Sure.
And the reason that your very first pick of your color choice in pickleball should be what color are we going to paint the transition area, and why? Okay, well, that is where the ball is traveling at its highest speed. So you have serves that are taking place that are anywhere from 45 to 60 miles an hour, right? You have overheads that still, I've measured them on a radar gun, you're still only topping out at about 60, some people hitting 65. You would think it's harder, but still it's going at fast speeds. It's a plastic ball. but at the fastest speeds of pickleball are the peak speeds of pickleball are taking place in the transition area. So what color do I need to choose in that particular area? I need to choose the most contrasting or complementary color of what? Yellow.
Of yellow.
Yeah.
The ball.
The ball. So if you look at the color wheel, what do you think that the opposite color of yellow is on a color a color wheel that is a proven thing? If you look at a color wheel, it's going to have a yellow, and then on the other side of that wheel, meaning the 180 opposite of that color, is going to be a color.
Blue?
Oh, it's blue. Imagine that.
Makes sense.
So the other color that works is actually purple. So purple and blue are the most contrasting colors, the most complementary, the most opposite, whatever word you want to use, of yellow. So do you want to paint your pickleball court? Yes, I sarcasm lives in my brain. I've made some posts, and I look at something online, and it's not to be. Do I get in trouble if I say Debbie Downer or Karen?
No,
or
I think you're
not
okay.
trying to be.
We don't.
You're not
we
being
don't,
a sexist.
We don't like any
Richard.
Debbies.
Should I call myself Richard? Why are you being a Richard?
I think it's Chad.
I said
Chad.
Chad.
Chad is the new
Chad,
Karen.
that's Simone's husband. He's like I love his commentating. It can't be Chad.
Sorry,
Sorry.
Chad.
Chad's cool. Excuse me. Sorry about that. He got me all choked up. So you've, in my opinion, you've narrowed your choices down considerably to what color you actually. Now this is for a community, right? We talk about you want to build a private pickleball court. You can be a little expressive,
Sure.
right? I mean, it's your court. Create your own space.
You're talking in an ideal world, though.
In an ideal world, you want to create a business model. You want to create the best experience, as a business model.
So you want dark blue transition zones.
It works.
What do you want in the
it's
kitchen?
Let's go to perimeter first.
Okay.
So
Can I ask a dumb question?
Yeah.
Why do they have to be different colors? Can't we just have one color of the floor with lines down?
it's a good choice. It's a good question. Sorry, and I would say that if you're going to minimize your color choices, I would minimize them to 2.
Okay.
Meaning, I want transition area to be that blue, or if you are a fan of purple, do purple. Beer City is purple. It's a beautiful contrasting color, and they love their look. And okay, that's great. It works. Now, why do you want a different color in the perimeter of your pickleball courts? Because you still want separation visibly. So you want your eyes to be able to visibly separate those balls as they land in or out. So if I was watching a ball fly and it's all blue, yes, I have a separation of white to be able to look at that. However, if you have a different color and a good color contrast, which again is going to be green or red, you want, if you look at what the opposite of green is, it's red. I mean, there's just colors that just fly on the wheel and their tint that work. But you can still play around with the perimeter. So I would say highest priority, transition area. Second priority, what are we going to choose for our perimeter? And I still say it needs to be a different color. I would just say stay, and this is where I kind of get involved, stay away from anything that has been lightened. And lightened, and what that means is by the tint having white added to it. So what is the most reflective color that exists?
White.
White is the most. So there's a scale. I didn't create the scale. I am not a professional, color artist and everything else. But if you do your research, you will find that. So black has a reflective value of 0. 0. What color has 100% reflectivity? White. So if you're looking at the background of something and you see white coming back at you, do you potentially see a problem there?
For sure.
That's
why some people struggle with white paddles.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
Somebody brought that up. That's not a thing. Yeah, it is. It's actually a new thing. So getting back on point, what you have white that is put down as a separator. So it's a very bright, or light, actually is a better word, on the court to show separation. And then I would just say that secondary color as your total perimeter. Play around with it a little bit. Grays, dark grays actually work really nice. Reds work great, and not bright red. So if you take, so there's primary colors, right? Your red, blue, and green. Red, blue, yellow. Sorry. And red is actually on that primary color scheme. If you brighten it or add white to it in the tint, so when you're mixing it, if you add white, that's just gonna, if you think about it, it's gonna add more reflectivity in that color. It's not gonna brighten it. White actually is a cooling color, but it adds reflectivity. So if you have outdoor and you have true like red, and not bright red, but tennis actually use kind of a deep
like
red.
A burgundy-ish,
which actually would have black added into it to darken. But as soon as you try to add a bright color, it's naturally going to have more reflectivity, and visibly your eyes are going to have a hard time adjusting to that. So that's why I just say, if you're going to pick a perimeter color in your community, aesthetically, what have we looked at for years? What has every single community looked at we have 2 tennis courts in our community. And I'm not, it's green and red. Or it's blue and red, or it's blue and green. So they do this for a reason. It's what we've always seen, and our eyes and our brains actually adapt to that. And then you're going to say, well, we want to be different in pickleball. Well, that's fine. I mean, I love it. So just pick a color that doesn't have so much reflectivity in it for that perimeter. And then you mentioned the kitchen. The kitchen is just your third priority. All I would say is make sure that it doesn't have a lot of white or bright in the hue in the tint when it's mixed. Still one of my color choices, my favorite colors, is a green perimeter, blue transition area, U.S. Open, or they call it competition blue. So there's actually colors called competition blue, competition green that work well.
Those are your real tennis standard colors.
It is. It just aesthetically, it's appealing.
So that's your ideal.
And then a gray
kitchen.
I like a darker, a little bit
gray.
darker gray kitchen.
Okay.
Something that isn't reflecting a lot of white from the sun if I'm outside playing. I've seen colors that are bright yellow or bright blue, in transit. And that's why those bright colors don't work as well, I should say, in the transition area, because of so much reflectivity. Whether you're doing it indoors or outdoors, you want your eyes to be able to have the best contrast as you're playing, right? If you're having to struggle, if you instantly saw a bright color, in the transition area, your brain is going to have a hard time processing that.
And then the colors for around the perimeter for the backdrops and things like that. I think you mentioned earlier, just blacks and dark greens.
Blue. So blue has been a consistent color. Actually, I saw an indoor facility here out in the middle of nowhere, a beautiful barn. He has a rubberized court surface. But one thing that I absolutely loved right when I walked into the facility was the barn itself, the walls are white. However, he painted 6 feet up. I didn't measure, but it looked to be 6 feet.
Visually.
Blue. He did a blue.
That competition blue, basically.
On the wall. And what that actually does is gives a great contrast. As the ball is rising and falling, it gives great separation. So one thing that was a representation of this in 2018, I was playing at Indian Wells, and we happened to be the very first. It wasn't a medal match, but we were playing on center court. We walk out I was playing with Jennifer LaCour. We walk out, first thing that morning, and the sun is coming up over the mountains. And on the back end of the court were white chairs. And we got to the point where you can't see. So it was now it became game strategy to make sure that you're doing everything you can to make that visually difficult for your opponents. But as the ball is coming at us, you can't see because of the reflectivity of white. Wow. They experienced that at MLP just recently. If they would have not MLP, but the event coordinator, they don't know. Again, I say you don't know what you don't know.
Right. And
the event coordinator built the outer courts, the grandstand courts, so that the other premier courts, and they put chair. They wanted to create a spectator area right on the end. What did they do? They put white chairs. What did all the pros complain about, and what were switched out to black chairs? Within 2 days they switched those white chairs. So just be aware that white can cause disastrous things.
Avoid white and get a white paddle to get an advantage.
For your backdrop. Yeah. The only thing that should ever be white are the lines
and the lines should always be white.
Absolutely. Yeah, unless you're, if you have a marriage of, other sports that they call them, they're supposed to call them shadow lines. So if you've got a court where they're still playing tennis and they don't want to give up their tennis, gotcha. Typically what works best, those tennis courts most likely are going to be blue. And then creating shadow lines, it doesn't help us as pickleballers, but those lines are darker blue. So they're darker than the actual tennis court surface. And if you visually look at, I've seen some communities do yellow. It's pretty dramatic. Like for tennis players, it would be extremely annoying. And then we would say, we don't care.
I've seen some with yellow, and I think it looks awful.
But for sure. But
we did light blue in our edition, and
that works too.
And it was all right.
Yep, light blue will work. Just be aware that you don't want it to be extremely reflective, and you want it to have that kind of matte look. Yeah.
All right, we do need to take another quick break here. Anything else, though? Last thoughts on lighting, quickly.
We could absolutely get into it, but I would just, if you're building, I will say real quick that if you're building an outdoor facility and you're building new, you want 4 lights per court. So that would be your premier. Just like tennis, they put actually 4 giant lights, usually on two courts, but on a pickleball court, if you want the best lighting, you put 4 light fixtures per court, and you place them in the middle of the transition zone on each side.
I thought you were going to say 4 corners, but
no. So we actually, and this is we've learned in production as well. If you place those lights too far back or too close to the center, you create shadows and dark spots, and you can't actually see. But if you get the right, lumens per fixture, it's 4 light fixtures per court. And if you have a dividing court next to it, right, so you can actually place the lighting pole and its foundation right in the middle of that court separator. So gotcha. I have a premier court. I have 8 feet, let's say, right, in the middle. So I have a court and a court. I'm going to put that foundation of the light pole right in the middle of the fence, meaning this fence is going to butt up next to a round base is what I would recommend for safety instead of a square base. If somebody falls on a round object and versus a square cornered object, you're helping minimize liability. Sure. You would have a single pole and a double fixture, if that makes sense. Yep. One fixture facing in, one facing the adjacent court. Nice. And everywhere you go, you put 4 fixtures. Yes, it's going to increase expense, but what exactly?
That's good lighting. That's how it works.
Absolutely fantastic lighting. And new LED, and it's very economical. As far as continuous yearly cost. Right. If you're going to build an indoor facility, I highly advise, and this is where people struggle, and I totally get it. You're doing a lot of retail conversions going on right now, right? Some of it is kind of silly, and they're just jamming in courts, going all different directions, no visual separation, and then they're using existing lighting, which is direct lighting. So if you're playing on a court and you've got direct lighting right over your head, as soon as you lift up and look, most of the time you're going to be looking right in direct lighting. What would be the premier way to do things? would be indirect lighting. You typically you would want 24 feet is just beautiful prime real estate for being able to do everything in pickleball that we want to do with lobs and everything else.
Sure.
22 feet still works great.
Yeah.
But if you had a 24-foot ceiling and a 4-foot drop down lighting fixtures along the sidelines of each court. So again, we're talking about we want to build a premier place, right? So I have 2 courts next to each other. Right in the middle of these courts, I'm going to build light fixtures that are uplighting, that are hanging down from a 28 or a 26 or a 22-foot ceiling even.
Sure.
In the middle of those courts, light is shining up. And if you remember back when I was talking about tennis earlier, why is every single indoor country club tennis facility roof, why are the roofs white? For reflectivity. Reflectivity. So you're going to build a structure, your ceilings, you are instantly going to spray foam that white. You're going to put white insulation. Whatever you do, you're going to do uplighting, reflect it out, and then you can fill it with some direct lighting. So there is a method to where to place those lights, but I would say if you're building an indoor facility, the very first thing you need to consider are, can I actually put in uplighting, which would be the premier A choice. B choice would be some direct lighting. I would just be very careful putting them directly over the playing surface. And just think about the experience and go visit. I would say go visit, facilities that work, and I haven't seen very many that are just, they do all the things, right.
It's still fairly new, though, and I think as more come around, they're going to learn from the mistakes of others, hopefully, and we'll get some good ones. Yep. That kind of segues me into, we are going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I have one more question for you, and then we'll wrap things up. I know we're over an hour already, but I think this is a topic that's interesting to a lot of people who are getting excited about new facilities popping up and maybe even looking to put in some courts on their own. So we'll be right back, and we will wrap things up.
Are you new to the game of pickleball and looking to learn the basics? Or maybe you're an experienced player who wants to take your game to the next level? Both Matt and I would love to help.
That's right, Abby. We are both Level 2 IPT-PA certified instructors and would love working with you, either giving you private lessons, group lessons, or hosting a clinic. We also offer unique video coaching utilizing the latest in drone technology. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, or TikTok by searching Hoosier Pickleball, or email us at HoosierPickleball@gmail.com. Also, check out the show notes for all the links to our social channels.
All right, welcome back to one more game presented by Hoosier Pickleball. We are in a marathon episode right now. I love it. Randy, I love you, man.
What is,
you can talk.
It is.
It is.
This is
You're
great.
the marathon man. I mean,
marathon?
I think that's a compliment, right?
Well, yeah.
Considering our last topic,
endless miles on the road go quick.
Yeah.
Isn't it? You wonder why.
Yeah, there you go. So anyways, we have been talking about the 4 components, as you like to call them, of court design. And as I mentioned in our last episode, we got to co-host 2 of the guys that are bringing Ace Pickleball here to town. We are really excited about that, especially after we talked with them. So kind of, if you go ahead.
I was just going to jump in and say their interest, and they said this, is they want to bring in the Mercedes-Benz of pickleball experience. So knowing that they want to do that high level quality, I guess is,
we should give them a shout out. So TK Herman, Scott Howard, are hoping to open up a brand new state-of-the-art facility. It will be the largest indoor facility east of the Mississippi.
Wow.
And
does that coincide with the brewery that has?
There you go. I mean, you mentioned that. So east of the Mississippi, we might really put Fort Wayne on the map here shortly. So 66,000 square feet. They are looking at 21 courts. One of those courts will be a championship court because they're really hoping to attract some Major League Pickleball or high-level pickleball pro events. They want to do it right, as Abby said. They're wanting to create an experience that people are going to want to come to, not just to casually play, but to people who really take their game seriously.
Nice.
So maybe, Randy, talk us through a few things that you would really want. So I'm going to limit you to 3. So
I may or may not listen.
Let's say
I'll
3.
try to
3 things that you
quick.
would say are at the top of your list that you would want to see at a state-of-the-art Mercedes-Benz of pickleball facilities.
I would say you need to think about if you're creating an experience for your customer. You want to give them a reason to not go and play free outside at the local crack courts. So
I love
they're
it.
not all crack.
Did you say
they're
crack courts?
Crack. I've seen some in areas they probably sell that around. I don't know, but
You're not wrong.
cracked. Yeah. And it happens all over. It's not just Fort Wayne.
Right.
But
Create that experience.
create the experience for your customer. Give them a reason to come to your place outside of just pickleball. Hey, let's get the family and let's head over to wherever, you know. And is that going to be just about pickleball, or are you going to have other things involved that gives your family, gives your spouse, your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, a reason to go and spend time and spend money.
Yeah.
So, and then I would build your courts. So this is what you're trying to highlight. You're going to be the Mercedes-Benz. You build it from the inside out. And what I mean by that is you build that court from that very center drain that we talk about where everybody gravitates to. Think about this visually. What do I want to create the best experience? Well, I'm going to still go right out of the gate. You're going to put net straps right out of the gate. Why? I see pickleball facility. And this is a whole nother topic. You're building pickleball courts, nets that have no center net strap. Pickleballers like this visually, and they like this. Well, we like to hit the ball under the net then bend over and pick up the ball and hit it to your, anyway. No, the reason that you actually want a net strap as a premier Mercedes-Benz facility or whatever you're building is you want that true tension. You want a pure contact point of that ball coming off that net at 34 inches, grading up to 36 inches on the sidelines. You cannot get that, and you cannot get that experience from a swag droop net that is only tied on each end. Yeah. So what I always do when I go, I create the center court experience, in the broadcast. Every time I'm allowed to get involved with that, you'll take the sides, and I actually crank up the net to 35 inches, right? And then I pull it down to where it matches 34. Now I have a net that is very tight. When that ball reacts off that net, it's either going to fall on this side, or when it hits with a lot of pace, it's going to jump and considerably go out. So what
it's not going to dribble over.
It's not just going to bend over with that droopy net or that bounce net. So building it from the inside out. Right outside, your next thought should be your spacing. What are we going to create? Now, if you're going to have an indoor facility and you have beam structure, so structural beams create havoc when they're converting retail space or other space into pickleball. So if your space has beams that are going to be in the path of that side-to-side movement, you better pad that up as much as possible, or consider another option of where you're actually placing those courts, in my opinion. So think about the spacing, and if you're allowed to create that 7 or 8 foot sideline space, and that big depth, that would be your second choice. Think about these colors.
Colors are huge, aren't they?
In the transition areas, if you want to get creative with some other areas, just keep it simple. Keep it with what works. When you're trying to win a pickleball tournament, you don't want to do wild and crazy things. When you're 9-10 or 10-9, you want to play to win. You don't want to play not to lose. But in pickleball, you want to do that too. And your transition area should be just a choice of what consistently works, with the opposite on the color wheel of yellow. Fencing, I love the inclusion aspect of 4-foot fencing. Create a reason why somebody should come and sit. You can actually create, so I actually designed the side courts, not to go into it too much, with an open spacing concept. So if I have outer courts and then I have a lot of public flow on the outsides, I like to create from kitchen to kitchen open on the sides, or from mid-transition. Coincidentally, that's where the lights fall outside. If you remember me saying that, from that point where the light is all the way to where the next light is, leave your sides open in a community. It creates a natural inclusion pad where people can sit their chairs. Balls don't really, they're going to go out, but they're not going to travel like they do on the ends. And it creates just a really nice inclusive aspect of pickleball. You can actually do the same thing indoors where your layout architect design is. Just, I would say, don't let your architects design your pickleball space. Let the pickleball experts give serious considerations to you to then give to your architect, so that when they do that rendering, because what happens is, well, we just gave it to the architect and then they do this rendering which costs them, $5,000 or whatever, and now they got to redo
they feel
it
like stuck. Yeah.
So and lighting, so create that space environment, create those 4 foot nets, create viewing for other people to sit on rails, order food, whatever they're doing. And think about your color choices. It's just, again, just think about, black has 0 reflectivity, and, white has 100, percent reflectivity, and create that backdrop, for the play as well. Give color separation, and then really, really consider lights. If you are afforded if you want to be the Mercedes-Benz anywhere in the country, if you say you want to be the premier facility, spend the money on lighting professionals to come in and, if at all possible, create an uplighting effect with direct lighting fill. I've learned about lighting. I'm not a pure placement, except on the structure or where those fixtures are going to be along the sidelines, indoors. But just, reach out to the people who are successful with their background in pickleball, and allow them, include them in your design. And you mentioned those that want to do an outdoor or an indoor championship court. Now you're talking about bringing in what? You're bringing in cameras. So if there's one thing I do know is about placement of cameras. I frame everything at Boxcar, so if it doesn't look good, it's my fault. I try not to ever let that happen. Sometimes I'm not allowed to do what I want to do, just based on the venue. But if you want to create a great center court environment, take a look at tennis. So look at that shot. And where am I going to actually be able to place cameras? You can even, like I said, you can create revenue for an indoor pickleball experience by putting, it's called PTZs, or point to zoom cameras. They make some very, very nice cameras now that you can put high on each baseline indoors. You can feed them to a direct, link and control room inside, where people could actually pay and record their matches. You can use them as teaching. You can have video rooms. You can have,
so cool. The technology is amazing.
So think about your space, and whatever you think it is, make it bigger. Those are good thoughts. They really are. And I think what I love is getting to know TK and Scott. They're wanting to do this right. They're taking the time to rip the floor up at Spiece, to put down, a real surface that players, high level players, are going to want to play on, and they're going to have that experience that they do have under one roof. It won't be part of their club per se, but there will be the ability for people to come to have some family fun and entertainment. So a lot of cool stuff, but I think their willingness to hear from people, and the fact that they're both pickleball players themselves as well. Oh, that helps.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, when I picture all the things you're talking about in terms of just court spacing and fencing and stuff, I'm it's an outdoor court, but I picture that that inclusivity is Pictona with the bench. I mean, I don't know actual feet width and stuff, but they have the lower fences and then they have the bleachers in between.
It's open.
Each
so
court.
They have so that actually is an area that, there's a lot of things I could talk about that happened there, but that open side concept, it works. It instantly, you walk up to a facility that uses that model. I came up with, wanting to emulate that side open concept, just wanting to create an inclusiveness for pickleball. And when somebody walks up, they don't just feel like they're caged in.
Sure.
Right. We brought our kids to that tournament. We took them to Florida and they were able to sit and watch and they had a great time. Yep. And it really is that family friendly, or your friends are there. And that does create more of that inclusivity. I think in an
indoor facility though, like Ace, that would be hard to do because that creates a lot of dead space per se between the courts.
Funny with Reiner, when I was a part of that, finding out that project when the first bank of 24 was dirt. So I knew that place was coming, and I got attached or got connected with Reiner, and then he's known me, through. He's done a great job. He's an extremely hard-headed man. But every time I would give him a consideration, and now he listened to a little bit more because they're doing some APP, and they created a championship court, and lighting is still an issue there.
That I have some, those windows,
visually from the one side it was.
Okay, so there's still things that we can work on.
We
but
can't be perfect.
So I've learned that I'm very careful at what I give advice to Reiner with, because these are still good considerations, but sometimes people just don't. They just want to do what they want to do, and that's fine. And he's done great. But the last time I gave him a particular spacing and lighting consideration, he said, "Well, Randy, it sounds like you need to build your own pickleball court." And I said,
that's a nice way to say.
I like you, Reiner. I'm wanting to make yours better, But anyway, it's kind of funny. But I'm like, actually, you're right. So yeah. And then when I build mine, hopefully there won't be too many things, to critique about it. But
it's like when people build their own house, right? There's always regrets that they have. Eventually, you just have to pull
these are growing pains. But again, there's still some consistent things that just work across the country. Yeah. And if you just replicate this model, you can change up your colors a little bit, and you can create how things look. But when you go back to your bread and butter, which is that pickleball court experience, dedicated, you want to come in, people, you want to create that environment. They reserved this court. This is mine. We had a great time. I didn't have to sit here and listen to, balls flying all over the place. But my biggest recommendation, I would say to, your friends or anybody coming into this game, if you're doing indoor, whatever lighting considerations you're thinking of, make it brighter. Whatever spacing considerations you're thinking of, make it bigger.
Yep.
And I have yet to see a place that I walk into and like, oh, this is way too bright in here. Or, my gosh, these courts are too far apart. You know, that has not happened and most likely will never happen.
And you got to understand it is a business, so you've got to
budget. You've got to stay open.
You got to stay open. You got to make sure that you're getting as much revenue as possible.
Yeah. That's why alcohol is a great return investment, because people can, and Chicken and Pickle, with that business model they have, they're creating enormous revenue, on those sales.
And pickleball is really a small part of it. It's the chicken more than the pickle.
It's again, it's really
or the beer more.
It's that's a whole different concept, but they give a reason. No.
Do you want to take another hour and a half and get into it?
Yeah, let's go. We're at 1:33 right now, so no, I appreciate you. Thank you. I appreciate you letting me.
No, dude, it's awesome.
Kind of share what I've learned.
I think it's. So. I think it's a lot of great information. I learned a lot. Yeah. We do always end with something we love. So usually I have something a little deeper. So.
Oh, nice.
I don't this week, but
what?
The one that I have that came to mind is we don't stream many shows, but we started streaming the I was going to say the Terrace. It's not the Terrace.
The Hijack.
It's called Hijack. Yes.
Was that
Hijack.
Was that offensive?
Terrorist?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
What do you do with terrorists?
I don't do anything with terrorists. I watch a show on Apple TV Plus called Hijack. And it's been
a good
good.
show.
Yeah. So every Wednesday a new episode comes out, and I'm already excited for the next
Yeah.
one. So that's what I'm loving right now is the show Hijack.
Were you a Jack Ryan fan? Or?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First couple
Yeah.
seasons haven't watched it in a while.
You finished Yellowstone?
No.
No.
No, I need to go.
It was great
Watch
till
those.
they stopped doing the violence, and then in the
Yeah.
last seasons got boring.
Got boring. What's something
What do
you
you-
love? Let's go to Abby. We'll end with our guest.
I am excited for the fall because I don't know if this was a mistake, but we did it anyways. We signed all 5 of our girls up for different sports.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be
5
really.
girls.
So we have soccer.
We have our youngest is going to play soccer in the fall. Our 2 of them are playing softball, and then 2 of them are playing volleyball.
Yeah.
But
It's gonna be a
I'm
busy fall.
truly excited about watching my children grow into sports. Obviously,
Even if it means a little less pickleball for us.
we're probably not going to be around much in the fall.
Yeah.
Even if it means every dollar that comes in goes out to sports.
Seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. But
It does.
it's worth it though, right?
It is.
All right. Last but not least, Randy, what do you love?
Does that mean I can go back to Thailand now?
Yes. Just yeah.
You
Hold
ready?
on, I got to
You
book
ready
my
go?
ticket real quick.
What in
I
specific?
do.
What do you love specifically in Thailand?
Let's not go deep into this. There's so many things.
So many things.
The landscape.
I do. I do love sharing and traveling for pickleball all over the world. I love seeing the excitement of
Yeah.
people playing on their gym floors because they don't have a choice. They don't
Right.
have the money,
But they still love it.
and they still love
that's
the
cool.
excitement. And I love that aspect of it. I think I love mainly just meeting new people.
Yeah.
So the new pickleball contacts. Not that I'm looking for a new place to stay in a place because I've worn out my welcome. But no, I do love. I'm always meeting someone new and making a new friendship through pickleball, and then usually I instantly connect myself to Facebook or Instagram with that person, and now we're sharing adventures mutually because of pickleball.
Well, that's really cool.
That's awesome.
Well, we have enjoyed having you around here for the last few weeks.
Hour and 36.
Well, I mean, not just this last hour, but hour plus.
Yeah. No,
but
it's
also
a pleasure.
it's been fun playing with you, hanging out. So
But we'll see you in
you are-
Beer City.
yeah, we'll see you in Beer City.
In
And
your
you are-
4-5 tournament. In your round robin. I look forward.
I don't think Randy has a whole lot of confidence in you.
I am an advocate. It's I like how you made that flip when I said, what skill, what division are you playing? And you said 4-5, and it had nothing to do with what I think your skill is. It's like, 4-5, like now you're testing your limits, and okay, but it is a round robin, so now you're going to get to experience a set number of matches. And test your limits, and I absolutely promote that. So I wish you all the best for that. Get those serves deep, deep, returns deep. Are you stacking or are you not stacking with your partner?
I would like to stack, so I'm on the left, but we'll see how that goes.
You'll see how that goes. All
Don't
right.
you think I should be on the left?
It depends on how good your returns can be. Yeah. You should. It depends on what's coming, what you're playing with in the middle as a partner. But return down the line if you are going to make a switch. Deep down the line.
Yeah.
Deep down
the line. That's what I try to do.
Yeah.
All right, there's a little tidbit for you to end the show. So, all right, as always, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.
I look forward to it.
As always, we want to thank our sponsors, Hoosier Pickleball, Indiana Physical Therapy, and Pickleball Rocks. In addition, a big thank you to our production company, Coraggio Media, and the 95.7 WELT studio in beautiful downtown Fort Wayne. Please make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, or find us on YouTube at One More Game Pod. That's the number 1 More Game Pod. Hit that subscribe button and be sure to leave us a 5-star rating to help us spread the word. You can also find us on Facebook and TikTok at Hoosier Pickleball for all kinds of fun, tips, tricks, and other family nonsense, and also some great discussion. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.